Students are 300 times more resilient if they have at least one person outside of their family who believes in them. I want you to think on that for a minute. I'm Nathan Folks. I'm the student pastor here. I'm excited to be with you this morning. And I know you probably hear student ministry, right? That comes up and you're like, oh, this is the guy that does all the games and all the goofiness and all the silly stuff. And he's the reason why we can't have drinks in the auditorium. Like it's that guy. And yeah, we do have a lot of fun. And yeah, that is probably us. Sorry, y'all. And when we think about like topics that we normally would talk about, you're probably like, he talks a lot about relationships and friendships and should they date or should they not date and things like bullying in school and all of that. And we do talk about all those things, and I love working with teenagers. But I want to come to you this morning and I want to tell you the three biggest things I'm seeing. When I look at the next generation, when I look at the students in my ministry, and when I do research into students across our country, these are the three big things that they're facing. And for some of you, that's going to be shocked, but for others of you, you're like, I see it. They are anxiety and depression and suicide. And I know some of you in here, like, you hear that and you're like, oh, that got real heavy real quick, Nathan. But here's what I want you to remember, that we have this. Go ahead and put the quote back up there, sorry. Students are 300 times more resilient when they have at least one person that believes in them, one person in their corner, one person outside of their family that says, yes, I believe in you. And so there is an answer to teenagers who are facing a world that is full of pressure, that they're full of the anxiety of what's my future going to look like, and am I going to do good on this test? Am I going to get into that college? Am I going to be successful? Am I going to find a spouse? Am I going to fill in the blank? And then when life doesn't turn out to be the way they had pictured it, they get depressed and they feel sad, and all that anger that they can't express outwardly, it turns inward, and they have all of these things going on and all of this emotion going on. We have an answer to help. And that is encouraging and that is exciting, because we can be these believers that come alongside of them. And here's what I'm seeing with teenagers, is I'm seeing that for many of them, they don't see themselves the way that God sees them. Maybe you struggle with that. They struggle to see themselves as a son and a daughter of the King, that they inherently have worth and value. Instead, they don't see themselves that way. They see themselves in a mirror that's distorted, and it's just wrong. And when we look at this generation, they have a really hard time seeing a hopeful future. Because what they know is the pressure of today, and they go, if this is the next 20 years of my life, I don't know if I can handle it. If this is what the future holds for me, I don't know if I can do it. Well, guess what? That's where we come in. That's where you come in. Is that we get to come alongside of them, and we get to be that hope, and we get to help them see themselves through God's eyes. Because sometimes it's difficult for us to see it. And so when I say believer, I know we have the Christian term believer, but if you'll allow me, we have a different definition this morning. When it says in there that you're 300 times more resilient if someone believes in you, when I say believer, I mean somebody that sees you the way that God sees you, even when you don't see it. Someone who speaks life into you even when you don't speak it into yourself. Someone who's there with you in your highest moments and also in your lowest moments. When you mess up, when you screw up, when you feel like a failure, a believer is someone who's there with you, encouraging you to get back up and to keep going. So we need these believers in our life. And when I read this statistic, I was like, this is perfect, because this is how we model our entire next generation ministry here at Quest. If you have a child, if you put them in pre-K ministry or kids ministry or in our student ministry or even in our young adult ministry, we are purposefully finding good people to put in the lives of your students and children. Because when we can put them in their life, if that person can become a believer in them, they become more resilient. They can handle the pressure and anxiety and depression, and they can not fall to it, and they can look upon Jesus with hope. And so for us in our ministries, we have students coming and children coming, and the anxiety and depression and these suicidal thoughts that they have are like walls in between them and Jesus. And what we try to do is build a relationship, become a believer in their life so we can tear that wall down. So they can be in a place to actually accept him and choose to follow him. So that's what we do, and that's why I love this quote so much. And this morning I want to talk to you about 3 types of believers that I've seen. In my life and ministry, I've had a lot of people serve with me on leadership teams as volunteers to serve in the next generation. And as I thought back on those different people, I've found 3 categories, if you will. And I made some names for them. The name is not as important, but go with me, okay? The first category is what I call an influencer. And that's this first seat here. An influencer is probably someone young, close to the age of the student. For us, these are our college leaders, college students. This is kind of like a big brother or a big sister. They're a believer in the student, and they are mentoring and guiding the student really through influence. This is somebody that you find yourself wearing the same clothes that they do and listening to the same music that they do. And you find yourself taking karate classes for some reason. That was me. I have a cousin who's just a little bit older than me, and all of a sudden he started taking karate, and he was like, I can kick you in the face. And I was like, all right, I'm taking karate. And it's just, these are people that just are in our life, and we are watching them. We're watching how they're living their life, and we are naturally just kind of wanting to be more like them. This is the first kind of believer. This is basically like that big brother, big sister. And whether you realize it or not, they're influencing you. The second one is what I call a teacher, for lack of a better word. And these teachers are in this category, but you don't have to be an actual school teacher. For me, this is somebody that's like 5 or 10 chapters ahead of you in the book. Right? And so if I were to look at my students, I would go, these are probably the people that are in their 30s, maybe early 40s. They've got kids of their own. They have a job. They have a career. And our students look at them and go, man, I would love to have that life. Man, I would love to have a marriage like that. Or I want to be a dad like that. Or I want to have a job like that. And these are the people that can come along. And the reason why this is so important is a different category. An influencer, we just kind of want to be like them. See, a teacher can tell you how to get there. You see, a teacher isn't just living, and a teacher can tell you all the things you have to do to get there. Not just the good things, but also the hard things. The hard truths, the real truths of, sometimes you have to do the hard work. Sometimes you got to put in the energy, and this is when you get that result. And so teachers are people that literally are able to help us see not only the future we want, but how to get there. These are secondary parental figures for us. These are coaches. These are school teachers. These are mentors. The last one is wisdom. And this is somebody who's completed most of the book. I used a little wise counsel and didn't say they're near the end of the book. Didn't do that. They've just completed most of it. These are the people in our lives that they have a lifetime of knowledge to give us. That they have lived the life and they have the experiences, and we can look and they I mean, these people have nuggets of life-changing wisdom. The people in my life that I think about that were in this category, the truths I got for them didn't just kind of make a little shift in my life, but instead drastic 90-degree turns. These are life-changing nuggets of wisdom that we can get. And so this kind of believer is somebody that is the other two, and probably have been most of their life, and now they're able to impart this knowledge of a lifetime. And I know, and I've heard this all growing up and all my time in student ministry, that, I'm maybe too old to serve. I'm not cool anymore. I'm not hip. I'm not kind of in the know. And the first full-time job I was interning with, the pastor kind of told me this, and I find it to be true. He said this to me. He said, students are drawn to the oldest person in the room that shows them respect. So if you're sitting there going, maybe I'm too old to really help the next generation. I've kind of lived my life, and I don't know that I'm really connecting with them. Listen, students are drawn. There's something in us naturally that's drawn to wisdom, to people with wisdom that show us respect. And I think that is so important. These are like the wise grandparents. These are the people that have that wisdom for us. So why does this matter? Why is this important, these types of believers in our lives? All these believers serve different purposes. But for us, we need them at different stages. And when life gets difficult, when the road ahead looks difficult and it's foggy and I don't know if I can make it, it's these people that allow us to see the future with hope. It's these people that when I look at my students and they don't see themselves like God does. It's these people in our students' lives that come and go, well, you don't see it, but I'm going to show you. It's these people that come alongside, hey, your faith is weak, your faith is struggling. Here, take some of mine. Because I do see you, how God sees you, and there is a hope, and there is a future for you. So these people literally change the lives of students because they help them see themselves. And they help them see the future, and they help them see Jesus. So for you seniors that are in the room, I want you to remember this, that there are people in your life that sit in these seats. And when you leave, don't leave them. Make sure they stay in your life. And if you are leaving us and going out into the world somewhere else, please find someone in these seats wherever you go, because it's important. And I know for some of you, you're sitting here and you look and you just see empty seats, but I'm going to tell you I don't see empty seats. Because there are people sitting in these seats that got me where I am today. When I think about an influencer, I think about a man by the name of Dusty Jacob. Dusty was a student in ministry with me. He was a little bit further down the road than I was. But Dusty was somebody that I wanted to emulate after. He invested in me. He took me under his wing. He poured into me. In a time of transition in my life, he provided some stability. And so for me, when I think about, oh man, I want to be like that in a few years, Dusty was that person for me. When I think about this teacher seat, I think about a man by the name of Pastor Andrew Bird. And I think about being a child in kids ministry. Someone who sat in the back row and wanted nothing to do with what was going on. Nothing against y'all in the back row. But for me, in my life, I wanted nothing to do with being there. And I just sat in the back row with my arms crossed. And this man just came and sat next to me and talked to me, and then he was like, hey, let's go sit up front. And then after I sat down, he walked up front because he was a kids pastor. I was like, you got me. I also see a man by the name of Chris Petracco, who is a man who saw a group of teenage boys and loved us. Loved us even after on a ski trip we put all of his underwear in the freezer and froze them. Who we let us come over to his house all the time and just destroy it, and just loved us through it. When I look at wisdom, I see Greg and Sherry Shuford, who's a couple who actually live just over the river in North Augusta. And they helped in our student ministry, and they poured into young adults in the college ministry. And they hosted college small group and having people over. And we would have these conversations, and things would get heated sometimes. And sometimes people just struggled. And they taught me this nugget of wisdom that it doesn't matter if I disagree with you theologically. It doesn't matter if we're on polar opposite spectrums, because we believe in Jesus and I can love you as a brother and a sister. This couple that when college students were struggling, they would just show up at their house and they would just say, come on in, let me cook you something. You see, there are people that sit in these seats for me, and for you, there are probably people that sit in these seats. That as you sit there, you can picture, and your mind comes across of these people. And what's awesome about all of this is actually the way God calls us to lead. This is what's called discipleship. We actually see this in Scripture. Jesus said to his disciples, come and follow me. And here in 1 Corinthians 11:1, we see this. It says, and you should imitate me, just as I imitate Christ. This is Paul talking, and he says, this is the way, to quote the Mandalorian. This is the way. This is how we should do it. Come and follow me. I'm going to follow Jesus. You just come on right behind me and follow me. And it's just such a short and simple passage, but it is so true. And as I think about this, I think about this is the way that Jesus led his people. This is the way Paul led. This is the way we should lead. One of the things I love most about my job is seeing students and young people say yes to Jesus and get baptized. And they're going, yeah, Nathan, that's your job. Yeah, it is my job. But I love it. And one of the things I love about the way we do it here is we'll put a tank up here, or we'll have a bowl or something, and John will come and he'll do the baptism. And then after we all get done clapping and celebrating, then he'll have us all stand up. And we stand up because we're making a commitment to that young person, saying, I'm going to follow Jesus, and I'm going to live for him, and I'm going to model for you what that looks like. I'm going to help you. I'm going to be a believer in you by chasing Jesus myself. I just love that is the model. And every time we have a baptism, that's what we see. Because here is the truth that I want to bring to you tonight, is that the next generation needs you. You may be sitting and you're going, I don't know, I'm not the wisdom seat, or I'm not the teacher seat, or I'm not the influencer seat. Well, guess what? There is a seat for you. And the next generation needs you. They need you to be running after Jesus. They need you to be setting the example. They need you to sit in one of these seats. And more than that, we all need it. I know we're talking about students tonight. We're going to honor some seniors this morning. Not tonight. I normally talk at night. Don't mind me. But this morning, our students need you. And guess what? We all need these. So wherever, yes, there are age brackets kind of with these, but wherever you are, you have someone who's an influencer for you. Just a little bit down the road. No matter how old you are, no matter how old your kids are, there are teachers in your life. And we all need wisdom. So there is always this need for us to have these people, that we need someone that we're following. And who's that person that we're going to follow? We hope they're following Jesus. Hebrews 12, 1 and 2 say this. Therefore, since we are surrounded by such a huge crowd of witnesses, you can just stop and look around you. This is the crowd. Since we are surrounded by such a huge crowd of witnesses to the life of faith, let us strip off every weight that slows us down, especially the sin that so easily trips us up, and let us run the race with endurance that God has set before us. And I love this. We do this by keeping our eyes on Jesus, the champion who initiates and perfects our faith. You can do it. Just keep your eyes on Jesus. Just run after him, because our students we all need someone to follow, someone to be ahead of us, someone that's going to believe in us. And the next generation needs you to be that person. And you're going, Nathan, that's a lot. I don't know if I can handle that. I don't know if I can do that. Guess what? Just keep your eyes on Jesus. And I want to tell you this. You're going, I don't know if I can do that. Guess what? You already are. Because the next generation is looking at you. They are following your lead. They are listening to you. You may not think it, but they're listening. And they're watching. So I want to leave you with this morning. This is my bottom line, if you will, for the day. You're sitting here and you're going, man, that's a lot of seats. Nathan, I can't do all of that. See, but here's the key. You don't have to be everything to everyone. But you can be something to someone. You can be something to someone. You could be one of these seats to someone. You don't have to be everything. You don't have to fill every seat for every person. You don't have to serve in every ministry. You just need to be something for someone. And you can do it. You can live your life chasing after Jesus. It's that simple. You can do it. And the next generation needs you to. Because this generation is struggling with anxiety and depression. The statistics alone are mind-boggling. Over 70% of students will have a traumatic anxiety experience before they graduate high school. For depression, it's over 80-something percent, 85, 86% will have a severely depressive episode before they graduate high school. Suicide, teenage suicide is through the roof. This generation needs you because often they can't see themselves the way that God does. Because their worth and their identity is linked to something else, is linked to how many likes they have on social media, or linked to how well they do in school, or linked to what college they get into, or what job they apply for. All of these things that have nothing to do with what God says their identity is. And this generation needs you to be able to look at them and be a believer and say, I know that you don't see it yet, but let me help you. Let me show you that you do have worth and you do have value, and God does have a future and a hope for you. And if you're going, what does that look like? How could I do that? Well, here, a little plug here. You can serve at our church with our next gen. Everything from holding a baby in the nursery to serving in the pre-K ministry as a leader, or serving in our kids ministry or tween ministry or middle school and high school student ministry with me, or serving in our young adults, or maybe just be a small group leader. You can be that person that this generation needs, that believer to help them see and to help them believe in themselves when they don't see it. Because you see, we all can be 300 times more resilient when we have one person, just one, who can believe in us. You don't have to be everything to everyone, but you can be something to someone. Let's pray. God, we thank you so much this morning. God, that you modeled this for us, that you came to this earth and you lived this. God, you went to your disciples and said, come and follow me. And now we get to see this, and we get to be a part of this. We get to be a part of your plan for salvation, for the world, for the next generation. This is your plan. And we get the privilege of being a part of it. God, I pray for every person in this room, every student. God, I pray that when they are facing that anxiety, that depression, God, when they're having those thoughts, God, that a believer comes to their mind, that a name and a face show up, reminding them of how you see them. And God, I challenge every person listening, whether in person or on the video. God, I pray that you are putting something in their heart, God, that they would step up. They would step up and fulfill that part, God, because this generation needs them. That they would live for you, that they would chase after you, that they would model for this generation what it means to love you, to live for you, to be resilient. God, and that they could see themselves as you see them. God, help us all to do that in Jesus' name. Amen. I want to take a moment and just say thank you. I know some of you, even as I say all of that, some of you have been doing that. Whether it's here in our ministry or somewhere else. As someone who serves with teenagers every day, let me tell you thank you. From the bottom of my heart, I can't thank you enough for being a believer for them because they need it. They absolutely need it. So thank you, whether you serve in our ministries here, whether you serve and volunteer somewhere else, thank you for what you do. Because you are changing the life of teenagers.